Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Randall D. Stroud, and today we're going to talk about the normalization of weakness. Let's get into this. So, nowadays, there's a big push with hashtag mental health survivor or hashtag safe spaces. Everyone's being more open with their emotions. They're discussing what's bothering them. They're being more open about their feelings. And to a certain degree, this is a good thing. This is a good thing because I feel that a lot of people, especially men, have suppressed their emotions. And this has, kind of been the norm that men should be strong and stoic. And any emotion that they feel, they have to push it away and be strong. And this has led towards alcoholism and other self-destructive behaviors to sort of redirect that pain. Someone once told me that crying is kind of like a release valve. And I'm not saying that men should go around, in public and just crying all the time, but perhaps every couple of months, go in the privacy of your own room and have that, release if you need to do it. And I sort of like, in some ways, where this direction is going, that we're recognizing that, hey, men have struggles and that men have, these emotions that they process, and we're humans too. It's not just women who cry or get emotional, but men can feel these things too. I fear that in many ways, it's gone too far. You see all of these people sort of identifying with these mental health conditions. You go to Twitter and everybody has a mental health condition now. Hashtag bipolar disorder, hashtag anxiety survivor, hashtag borderline personality disorder. Everybody identifies with these disorders. If you give a name to it, it exists. And we have to realize that psychologists, they are business owners. You come in and you do this therapy session and they sign you up for the next meeting. And they keep you as a perpetual customer. I really feel that this current generation is a lot less resilient than my father's generation and most certainly my grandfather's generation. It's like people now who are between the ages of, 15 and 25 or 15 to 30, sort of, starting with, millennials and then, Zoomers and Generation Y. Anybody really born in the last, 35 to 40 years has sort of been a victim of this sort of feminization of society and sort of this weakening of especially the male populace. This is a very difficult topic, because we get into things like, toxic masculinity and all these sort of things, but it was masculinity that helped to protect families for thousands of years. Was it toxic masculinity when a caveman protected his family from a saber-toothed tiger while his wife or partner was pregnant? That there's something about testosterone and being manly that is admirable. There's something admirable and something honorable about our grandparents who were stoic and survived World War II and survived on very little, but were able to be happy. I mean, we don't have to hunt for our food anymore. We can literally go to the grocery store and get food, and we don't have to hunt for it. We have the most pampered and easiest lives in human history. Even homeless people have a comfortable life compared to what people had 10,000 years ago. Even homeless people can go to soup kitchens. They can go to public centers to take hot showers for free. Now, that's not to talk down to the plight of homeless individuals, and not saying that we shouldn't help them out, not saying that we shouldn't prop people up as high as we can. But what I'm saying is that Don't let this new culture force you to identify with weakness. If something bad happens to you and you need to cry, cry, process it, accept it, forgive, and then move on. We're sort of fostering this culture that has been created by this famous cycle of hard men create easy times create weak men create hard times, and hard times create strong men. And then strong men create easy times, and then easy times create soft men, and then soft men create hard times. And it just keeps going around in circles and circles and circles. And right now, we are currently living in the age of hard times, or we're moving into hard times that has been created by soft men. And we're going to be stuck in this cycle for a little while until things get so bad to where we get to this point to where we are forced to straighten our backs up and stand up and fight and be resilient and to be relentless. That's something that my father taught me. He said, if you want something in this life, whether it's a girlfriend, a job, whatever goal it is, you've got to be relentless. You have to be relentless, and you have to be resilient. What does it mean to be resilient? Being resilient means that something bad can happen to you, and you can immediately cope with it and come up with a plan to solve it. And I understand that some of us are more blessed with more coping abilities than others, right? Some of us have family that we can lean on. Some of us have inheritances. Some of us, have healthy, strong bodies, and we don't have disabilities. So we're all operating from different levels of ability that make it easier or harder to be resilient. But look at a guy like Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking was paralyzed from the head down to his toes. And he still found the motivation to stay alive and write books. And he's one of the most important astrophysicists that has ever lived. And he still found meaning in his life. As long as you can find some sort of meaning in your suffering, you can survive whatever hardship that you're going to. To live is to suffer. To survive is to find meaning in the suffering. That is the basis of post-traumatic growth, which is the opposite of post-traumatic stress. Approximately 13% of people who undergo a traumatic event become better, stronger, more pliable people. Because they take that horrible situation and they author the story in their mind in such a way that empowers them instead of makes them the victim. But everyone's now going around being told, it's not your fault. It's everybody else's fault. You're the victim. It's because you have anxiety. It's because you have bipolar disorder. It's because you're black or because you're white. It's because you're tall. It's because you're short. It's anything besides your fault. That's sort of the culture that's being fostered now. And we have all of these, fancy scientific terms. This person has borderline personality disorder. This person has depressive mania. This person has gender dysphoria. This person has this, and this. Once you start naming things and giving all these diagnoses, then you start giving people new identities. They start identifying with these labels, and it becomes a part of who they are. Some people even introduce themselves in this manner. They say, hey, my name is David Smith, and I have bipolar schizophrenia. Nice to meet you. And it's just like, it really makes me scratch my head is, why would we go around, sort of bragging about these things almost? It's different talking about these things in a trusted environment under a professional or amongst family and friends. But it's almost like it's becoming this badge of honor, like, oh, look at me. I have this, quote unquote mental illness. And I think it's getting really dangerous. And we're not teaching our children to be resilient. I always say that I don't want my children to have an easy life. I want to give them the tools to deal with a difficult life, because life is inherently difficult. Struggle is a part of the human existence, and we can either embrace it and let it develop our character, or we can fall victim to it and expect society to create all these, safety nets for us, and then, we can walk around with no fear. And this is where authoritarianism comes in versus liberty. People who believe in liberty do not believe in fear, or they don't live in a basis of fear. They know that life is risky and they face it with courage. And they would rather have more freedom and less safety nets and risk death, because death is inevitable. It's going to happen no matter what. And people who believe in liberty accept this. And that's why people who are more resilient tend to be CEOs. They tend to be risk takers. But people who are very risk adverse, these are the people that tend to be less successful when it comes to dating, when it comes to business, when it comes to everything, because they don't want to make any move in life that puts them in risk. And then when they see people who are not afraid to take risk and they become successful, they become resentful towards those people. Like, why do they get to be so successful? Well, because you're afraid to take risk. You're afraid to leave your safe space. Instead of creating more safe spaces, what we need to do is encourage people to empower themselves to become so capable that wherever they go becomes a safe space because of who they are. So instead of creating safe spaces, you become the safe space. We have two battles in society. Do we want society to become safer, or do we want to become more capable of defending ourselves? Through virtue of becoming more capable of defending ourselves, as a result, we create a safer society. So liberals tend to be obsessed with the symptoms of problems, whereas I'm asking you to get to the root of the problem. Do we want to live in a society that creates opportunity or mandates opportunity, or do we want to live in a society that creates equal opportunity, or do we want to live in a society that mandates equal outcomes? And the only way that we can guarantee equal outcomes is to have a society that operates from authoritarianism, where we force people, right? Everybody can only make $50,000 a year. Everybody must be 6 feet tall and handsome. Everybody has to have the same cards handed to them. And then society becomes standardized. That's communism. So what I'm asking you is, if you feel like a victim, you have two choices. You can blame society and you can demand that someone come and rescue you, or you can look in the mirror and say, you know what? I know what my weaknesses are, but what are my strengths, and how can I leverage those to my benefit? And what can I do realistically to minimize my weaknesses and maybe even turn them into strengths? And then there we go from victim to empowered person. We go from playing defense to playing offense. And if enough people go on the offense in their lives, the more people will start to feel fulfilled. Things don't fall into our lap. Things come through action. So I want to end this video because I don't want this one to drag on, but I'm not anti-psychology, but at the same time, if we look at ancient spirituality, which taught to, especially if we're speaking about Christ, forgive other people. Forgiving people is the fastest way to get over trauma. You forgive so that you can move on. It's only whenever we hang on to things that it eats us up, like a cancer. But if we take ancient spirituality, which centered itself around empowering people and creating this concrete path, that has worked for thousands of years. But modern psychology, they're trying to reinvent the wheel, and they're throwing all these terms at you. I actually look at psychiatry as the author of confusion. People are more confused ever than before. We're overcomplicating things. If you want to have a good life, here's what you do. All right? You get really good at something, and you make a career out of it, and you take care of yourself, and you try to become as attractive as possible, and you find a suitable mate, and you start a family, and you stay married and don't get divorced, don't have a child out of wedlock, graduate high school, pursue a career, and get really good at something, get married and stay married, and, don't have more kids than what you can afford. If you do these simple things, all right, you'll probably have a good life, especially if you live in a Western country. Work hard, don't do drugs, graduate high school, don't have children outside of wedlock, and keep God center to your life. At least once or twice a week, you gather with other people and you have a communion with God and the Holy Spirit, and you pray, and that keeps you centered. And you maintain a family unit. If families were intact, we wouldn't need social safety nets. My father is my social safety net. My mother is my social safety net. My cousin, my brother, my sister. It's only whenever we corporatized America and we sold everybody on the 9-to-5 job, everybody had their own house and apartment and become debt slaves, that we all became stressed out. Strengthen the family, become family oriented and become God oriented, and take care of your health. Work out, be healthy. Don't overindulge in alcohol and drugs and these things. If you follow those basic patterns, you'll probably have a good life. But psychology wants to complicate it. Like I got shot in the back of the head, right? I talk about this in every video. And I got over it pretty quick. No PTSD, nothing. I forgave the guy who shot me. And he got sentenced for shooting the other people. But I simply just forgave him and got over it. And I said, hey, it's between you and God. I'm fine. No major damage. I'm going to get on with my life. Boom. There you go. Keep the truck rolling. But modern psychology would say, well, we're going to sit down and talk about it, and we're going to book you 30 sessions, and we're going to give you all these pills, and then hopefully in 5 to 10 years, you'll be able to cope with it. I was able to cope with it within a couple of months. I processed it, got through it. Everything's good to go, no problems. So ancient spirituality didn't overcomplicate things. You have a oneness with God. You have these rules that you're supposed to follow. Live a disciplined life. And then whenever you die, you reconnect and recommune with your Creator. And all is as it should be. Our grandparents knew this. Our great-grandparents knew this. It's in this modern technological generation that we're overcomplicating things. We're overthinking things, which is creating anxiety. And I've been victim of this myself. I've been in relationships that could have been a lot better, but I overcomplicated things by overthinking all of the what ifs. 90% of the time, all the things that you're worried about in life don't even happen. Most of the time, things work out. This too shall pass. Most things, after, 5 years from now, whatever you're worried about right now probably won't matter in 5 years. Like 95% of the time. And if it does, then you just learn to live with it. And you cope with it. So whenever I go on Twitter and all these places and I see all this, hashtag mental health awareness, hashtag mental health this, mental health that. What we need is hashtag Jesus. What we need is hashtag God. If you get God in your life and you follow a structured monotheistic religion that gives you a carved out path to follow, your anxiety will wash away. I promise you. It will. All you have to do is give yourself a structured, disciplined life, and you'll feel better. So stop trying to pinpoint every childhood trauma and trying to make this very complicated puzzle come together, and just make it real simple. Forgive people who have hurt you, and forgive yourself for the people that you've hurt. Ask God for forgiveness. Work hard. Save money. Get off the drugs and alcohol. Be loyal to your wife or husband. Live a good life. And yes, I know it's not quite that simple, but it almost is. And then whenever these little hiccups happen along the way, maybe you have a health issue, maybe you have an argument with your wife or husband or whatever it is, you have developed enough coping skills that you can deal with it and move past it. So I want to encourage everyone out there that you are not your problems, you are not your diagnosis. It's just something that has happened to you, and you're seeking ways to overcome. If you're not looking for ways to overcome and move past it and never talk about it ever again, then it's always going to be a constant struggle. Your goal in life when you have a problem should be to first process, which means if you have to cry, scream, get angry, have that visceral emotion. Then after you've got that out of your system, then you learn to accept it. And then you process it by saying, what lessons have I learned? And then fourth, you move on. And you don't think about it anymore. It's in the past. It's erased. It no longer defines your future. But then people keep regurgitating things that happened to them 15, 20, 35 years ago. And it becomes a part of their identity. And they don't want to forgive it and let it go because it gives them an excuse. Well, I would be successful if it wasn't for my wife that divorced me 20 years ago, or, I would have been successful if it wasn't for this thing. Well, guess what? You can't go back there. You can't go back in the past. You've got to deal with what you have today. The best time to do something was 10 years ago. The second best time is to do it now. So be empowered, stop being a victim, and trust in ancient philosophy. Trust in the tried and true method. Forget about all this progressive, psychological, psychobabble. I trust what my ancestors have done for thousands of years. If it worked for them, it's good enough for me. And I don't need some psychologist. I don't need to pay him $10,000 to dissect my entire life when I can just forgive people myself and move on from it. And so can you.